Hi, a quick message from me, Caroline, host of Bump to Business Owner. This episode is part of a very special six-part collaboration with Lucy Wheeler, mum and founder of Lucy Legal. If you're running a business, don't trust AI and Google to cover your legalities. Lucy Legal was created to make your life easier. Check out Lucy Legal for real legal guidance, templates, and support. Go to the link in the show notes of this episode. Now on with the show. Hello and welcome to today's episode of Bump to Business Owner, the very special finale of our partnership with Lucy Legal. And today's guest is tackling one of the biggest and often least openly discussed challenges modern parents face: how to stay connected as a couple while balancing careers, children, identity shifts, and the invisible load that so often falls on us. Rachel Charles is a relationship coach, author, podcast host, and founders of Parents That Work, helping couples navigate the transition into parenthood without losing their connection, ambition, or sense of teamwork. After a career in corporate talent development, Rachel moved into coaching and relationship work, combining professional expertise with her own lived experience of unequal parenting and the realities many couples face after having children. She is certified in Hogan assessments, a bringing baby home educator, and a transformational coach. Through Parents That Work, Rachel supports couples in building stronger parenting partnerships rooted in equality, communications, and emotional connection, helping families move away from resentment, burnout, and the default parent dynamic so many experience in the early years. Rachel is also the creator of the Teen Blueprint, author of Beyond Baby Talk, and host of the podcast Equalish, where she explores modern relationships, invisible labour, shared parenting careers, and why equality in family life can feel harder in practice than in theory. As a married mum of two herself, Rachel brings both expertise and honesty to conversations around motherhood, ambition, relationships, and what partnership really looks like after children. Wow, thank you, Rachel. Where were you when I had my children the first few years, is all I have to say. I feel like in the past few years, I've opened my eyes to just how many career coaches, relationship coaches are out there. And I'm like, this is what we need.
Yeah. Funny thing throughout my whole experience of this has been that exact reaction of, where were you when we needed you? This is such like an important
That must make
thing.
you feel really wanted, though.
Well, yes and no, because I think there is still in society, there is still a gap between we can see this is important and I'm willing to take the leap to actually have conversations about it and do it. And I think that's still part of
it's a bit like
a really big challenge, I think, particularly in the UK society, because we're very closed doors, aren't we? We don't like to show vulnerability and too much kind of openness.
Especially with your relationship, I think there's a real sense of failure around that, isn't it? Yeah. I think I was the only one, because me and my husband got married when I was 4 months postpartum, not planned at all, but that's how life worked out for us. And I was like, so we'd only just got married, and I was like, what's going on here? Why does no one talk about this in your relationship and this, how hard it is? And I can imagine with men, it's particularly challenging to get, not to stereotype, but they are not, there's a lot of work we need to do to get them talking more still, isn't there?
Yeah. So I think a lot of the opportunity that we have in having conversations like this on your podcast, so thank you very much for having me, is just about normalizing the experience and normalizing the possibility that we can be more open and get support in our relationships, because it's the hardest relationship that you'll ever be part of. And
they see the best of you and the worst of you, don't they? That's the thing. You're there, you have to live together. And especially my early years were so wrapped around COVID, so it was like I couldn't get away from mine either. So I'm sure there's lots of women who can relate to that. It's like you couldn't just go with a girlfriend, and even if you're pregnant and feeling rubbish, and just have a rant for a minute and then go home and have it out your system, really. I'm sure you're seeing a lot of the impacts of that still, I can imagine.
I mean, COVID was a whole thing. COVID was, my eldest at the time was just turned 4 and my youngest was 9 months. So I returned to work from maternity leave like 3 weeks before we went into lockdown. And my husband was taking shared parental leave. So his entire shared parental leave was in my daughter's bedroom, homeschooling her and having a 9-month-old baby. I mean, it was just, the whole thing was horrific.
I mean, that's throwing you into managing the equality in the household, which I can't wait to get into. He really did not plan his shared parental leave to be like that. It's nice to hear, not sound awful, it's nice to hear men's stories, because I hear a lot of the women, my second pregnancy was in COVID and I was the main carer for the family. But it's nice to hear men who were, and it's like, oh, interesting.
It was very unplanned.
You were still at work then, which leads us on to my first question is, so like what was your career path that made you then niche into this particular, starting parents at work and going from corporate world into coaching in the home, essentially?
My education background is psychology. So I did masters in occupational psychology. My undergraduate was psychology with counselling. So I've always had that, the people development side of my interest was really from education, and I used that through primarily in consultancy, doing like big transformation programs, and latterly then doing like leadership assessment and development. And through that journey we did this program, big public sector program that was for women's sponsorship, and so I really got into the gender equity space through that program, really got into a passion for like mentoring and sponsorship programs. So then moved to a diversity and inclusion consultancy that specialized in mentoring and sponsorship, and was part of developing all of their kind of programs and for progressing talent and inclusive leaders throughout organizations. And it was really through the lens of women's equity in the workplace, particularly at senior leadership level, that I began to see patterns occurring, and particularly around the return from maternity leave, and that being such a key transition point that was then impacting the progression of women into higher senior leadership roles, the lack of impact that was having for male colleagues and for dads. And so through the data that we were seeing, it was almost like a light bulb went off, and discovered that, well, there's just no way that we can achieve equity for women in the workplace until we have equity at home. And I don't know if you've read Malcolm Gladwell's book Tipping Point, where he talks about the fact that you need to get, once you get kind of 30% towards something, then actually you create a tipping point where suddenly it's easier to then create exponential change.
Okay,
and
great.
so
Are we near that?
So we were kind of, we were getting there on women on boards, but women in senior leadership we're not. And so for me, I was like, well, we're not going to create that change until we get more men in the workplace, more dads in the workplace that are taking equity at home, that are wanting to have flexible working, that are wanting to be equal partners, that are talking about parenthood, and that are influencing change in workplaces that will then enable and support women, and that's going to create the tipping point and the change for everybody.
So male advocates is the way to go. Interesting.
So that's kind of was the seed that made me want to do something in this space. It was just coming out of COVID. I was like, I need to make a change. And the commute to the organization, because of COVID, their location has changed, and it was like, 3-hour journey, like door to door, like in a day. I was like, I just can't, this is not manageable with 2 small children.
Yeah, I do feel actually, and this is something worth noting, do you think as well, like there's something about the second child that makes you change your life more? I think with the first, you have your baby, obviously it's life-changing, that's the life-changing one, but you kind of, if you're in a great job, or not a great job, but one you're like, I'll go back to it, take maternity, go back a long enough time, have my second, and then it's the second that I think really changes everything for women, because you're like, how can I do all of this? Maybe your first is starting school and school hours, or just juggling too. You're like, I can't.
100%. I was thinking about this earlier when I was just like preparing and thinking about this conversation. Actually, I don't know that I did feel that much change after our first, because I was just a bit like, well, still in the mindset of, well, why would anything change? Nothing changes. She just is here. She's in nursery 7:30 till, and I never had any of the guilt around putting her in nursery 7:30 to 6. I was like, well, that's obviously where she's going to go, because I obviously have to go back to work, and it's in London. And it was just like a fait accompli. Like, it was never really a consideration. I think it was having the second born, it was working in gender equity, it was trying to do a 3-hour commute, which was just not feasible, and then the logistics of 2 drop-offs, like just the physical logistics of having the complicated scenarios of the same drop-off and pick-up times in 2 different locations.
And one might be walking, and that's so much slower you learn than just running around with a bucket.
Yeah.
Especially if they're only 4, you're like, oh God, I can't get anywhere quickly.
Suddenly everything just got a bit harder.
Yeah. No, I love that, because I don't think we do talk about that enough. It's like there are some people who are highly functioning with the first, and then the second comes along. And it's like, this is a lot more logistics to manage, and you kind of think, oh, other people are doing it, so I'll be fine. And you will be. You get to it.
I also think nursery is wonderful, and because they're so good at having the hours that fit around work, it's quite easy to just slot in and carry on. And then it's post nursery when they start to get in the preschool and school, when the hours don't match up anymore, and
school
holidays, and you just go, okay, the maths ain't mathing anymore.
It really is that. I remember when I'd got to that point, I was always a bit ahead of my friends, and I tried to be like, I have to leave at 2:30, sometimes 2, to get my child. And like trying to explain this. And I think one of my friends was a teacher, and she was like, I never really thought about this. And I was like, you're literally in there.
Or you have teachers who are parents who can't leave their class until the children have left, but they have children in another school.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know how teachers do it. That's a whole other thing that I can't math with that one. And so because I always because there's always people, I think, listening to this podcast who are like further behind you in the journey. Like they say, oh, that's where I want to be, like Rachel, in whatever it's they're doing. Where was the point where you're like, I'm going to do this? How did you make it happen?
So I remember at the time, I had recently done my coaching diploma, and as part of that, there was obviously the kind of lots of how to set up a business conversation. And all of the advice from everybody was, don't quit your job until you've got the steady stream of, you've tested the water, you've got income coming in, you've got that kind of good structure, so you're not putting too much pressure on yourself. So I ignored all of that.
Well, doing that when you've got 2 little ones and a job, I just don't know how people expect you to do that.
So I didn't do that, and I quit my job. And I think sometimes in a job, you just get to the point when you know it's time.
Yeah.
So I left, but I had a really good relationship with them because of, I'm a consultant, if you like, by trade. So I did consulting and contracting roles for a year. So I had that kind of steady, consistency whilst trying to play in the sandbox and see and work out exactly. Because at first I didn't know what I was building. I knew I wanted to try and coach working parents. And again, a lot of kind of my mentors said to me, don't try and coach couples, just coach individuals. And I don't like to be told what to do. So again, I tried to do that for a while, and then I
love these people, especially an entrepreneurial person. It's like, don't do this. You're like, okay, I'm definitely gonna do this.
Yeah. I'm definitely going to ignore your very, very well-intentioned advice. And I understand your advice, and I'm going to still try and do it anyway. So it took me, I would say, 18 months or so to really crystallize what I was trying to do.
That's really good for people to know, because it's never just quit my job and I've got clients.
No, and it's still, and I think even once I kind of crystallized what I wanted to do with parents that work, like it still then evolves and changes, and it is still evolving and changing, because the things that were hard that people said were hard are hard, and so it is like that constant evolution, adaptation of how do I best serve and support couples that are navigating this in a way that is the best for them, and you know, it took a while for me to realize that actually I could bring in all of my leadership and psychology and integrate that into using psychometrics and helping couples think about their strengths and doing the team profile. I was like, you kind of get these light bulb moments where you go, hang on a minute, why am I not using the skills that I know how to do, incorporate and apply them?
And then it also makes sense, because then you're not just falling into gender norms. You're actually looking at what the strengths are in a couple, and then every couple is different. I think that's why I said there's so much to evolve with this,
and so much of my, I think, philosophy with trying to support couples is, and for me, it's not I want to work with couples before they get to the point they need therapy. And that's, I think, quite a hard, that's where it's the hard ask, because a lot of couples aren't ready to do that work until they need therapy.
Yeah.
So, but the way that I approach it is, I know that as parents, we have so many arguments, we have so many battles, there is resentment that builds up, there are so many challenges that we face, and we face them very differently because of our gender, because of the way that we were brought up and our belief systems and the norms that we saw in parenthood, and because of our personalities. Like, we are fundamentally different people. So much of our arguments aren't actually about you and me. They're about external influences and factors that are impacting us, and how we can best work together and play into our strengths and our partnership. So much of what I try and do is help people to understand what are those external influencing factors that are impacting us, that we're fighting about, and I think it's you, but it's not, it's because of the pressures that are coming in, and how do we best understand each other in terms of our strengths and the things that we are naturally great at, and how that brings us together, but also those strengths and our innate abilities and talents as individuals are also things that sometimes can create the conflict.
Yeah.
Because we're so different. And being able to see it and name it is what you do with teams. Like, you see and name your differences, and therefore how you can best relate and work together.
Yeah.
And we don't have that language in the same way in our partnerships to really think about our team and what teaming means for us.
In early parenthood, you've got to be a team to get through it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where was it? Was it somewhere, you probably know that more than this, was it something like you should never make any massive decisions about your relationship in the first few years, or something like that? But it's it is just, for some people, it will be the biggest hurdle they've ever gone through as a partnership, isn't it?
The statistics show that 20% of divorces happen in the first 5 years of parenthood.
There we go.
Because it's so hard. And 60% of couples experience a drop in relationship satisfaction in the first 3 years of parenthood, because it is the hardest part of your relationship, unless you unfortunately have other kind of situations that you're impacted by. But for most couples, becoming a parent is the toughest transition, because you just don't know how you are going to respond to it and react to it.
Yeah, that's what I was actually going to say, because we all have this golden idea how we're going to be. I remember seeing some male comedian going, oh, if you're going to be a mother who wants to breastfeed constantly and sleep in the bed, that's fine, but you need to talk to your partner about that before you have a baby. And I'm like, how many women really know they're going to be that mother until they are? Because I was like, what world are you living in? Because most of my friends were all like, I can't imagine having my baby 6 months in the bed. And then, like, most of them, they were all there co-sleeping with a 6-month-old. And I was like, you don't think you're going to be that parent until you are.
Yeah, but also you don't know who your child is going to be, and you don't know how you are going to be with that child. You don't even know, can I breastfeed? Can I not? Am I going to have challenges? Like, are they going to be poorly? Are they going to have extra needs? Are they going to be like having challenges in their first few weeks? Like, there is just so many variables.
There is so many variables. And yeah, I'm glad you put that, because our second was really sick and it changed everything. And it made him, he still is, like, we still say he's attached to me, and it's just a part of him that the first child didn't have with me, and you don't know that. And so you talked about your shift and how it all naturally came to the work, and how the maths wasn't mathing with work and parenting that way. But was there anything that came to you personally that you were like, wow, in my relationship I did not expect this to happen? I'm not alone. Or any friends that came to you and you're like, this is, because I do sometimes feel like until you're in it, you don't really know how it's like at the home, in the home, do you either?
I think so much of the formative years when we had them too was COVID. So I mean, there was an awful lot of surprises that came up during that period that we were then having to navigate, that just made everything 100 times harder.
Me and my husband, I'll be open, we went completely like that. I was pregnant during COVID, like we just were living like different lives, it seems, at one point in COVID, because it was just, it really impacted us, that we had to kind of work together on afterwards. And I mean, there was definitely a lot of feeling of hatred bubbling up
like during COVID,
Yeah.
out of frustration and the fact that both of us felt like we just spent the entire day in the kitchen either cooking meals or cleaning up or preparing the next one, and like going to Waitrose or was your sanctuary.
No, that was it.
Oh, we
That
need
was
more
it for my
shopping.
husband.
I'll
And
go.
he was doing all the cooking, and I felt like I was just tidying toys all the time.
Yeah.
And I was like, I couldn't be in the kitchen because the smell was just making me feel sick.
Yeah. And then both trying to like work out where you can work, but not having a space to work because you never knew you needed two desks in a house until COVID.
I remember getting very angry at him that I was obviously like sorting out me and my son to go out for our one walk of the day, and he was working there, and I was like, this is where we're getting ready, so you go. So I've got to get him ready. And it was that because we hadn't had to have this before.
No. So I think it forced a lot of difficult changes in.
So COVID definitely for you. You're one of the. It's good to talk about because you kind of. I do think there's a lot we can forget from that period, but for parents in the early years, especially, it was so many demographics have their challenges, but this is the podcast we're on, and it was a really challenging time for us.
I had a really bizarre moment a few weeks ago when I can't remember how it came up, but I mentioned something about COVID, and my youngest said, "What was that?" And I had to actually tell him, and we hadn't had this conversation, but I had to actually tell him there was a time in his life when we weren't allowed to leave the house. And I just found that was the moment that clicked, where I went, oh my goodness, not everybody experienced it. Like our children now, like he will never know, hopefully. What
I think we're still in recovery to know.
Yeah. Despite that being his like first 3 years of his life, he will never remember.
Yeah.
And I just found that so mind-blowing.
So that is mind-blowing. I still find it mind-blowing, mothers who've become mothers the past couple of years, and they're like, I didn't think about mothers because they weren't at that stage of life.
Yeah.
So I think for me it was when the mothers started not knowing, because it was so brief. Like I had a friend who had a baby in the May, like this 2021. It's like, I don't remember what time in COVID that was. And I was like, because it really didn't affect you.
Yeah.
So therefore you are not part of this group, and I'm sorry I'm not letting you in.
Yeah.
And but other ones, I think my sister-in-law's friend was like, I remember people who got dogs during that time. And I'm like, it's not the same.
No. And anybody that was then part of the jigsaw club or the people that were like doing jobs, I just had intense loathing for, because it was just so polar opposite of what we were experiencing. And I think that created a lot of opportunity in the flexibility that we were seeing in the workplace and the ability to work from home. And it did create, and there's lots of data around the opportunity that created for dads to create much more kind of presence and balance in relationships.
Really?
But I think we're moving away again from it now because of the return to work policies that organisations are putting in place and the call back to the office. So it feels like though it opened up such a huge opportunity that has been sustained for like a good number of years. And there's a risk that we're just going to lose that because people forget that actually that this is really benefiting so many working parents, because I think this focus is still on working mums, not working parents. And so as a bucket, there's still a lot of work for organisations to see the full benefit of it.
It's so sad to see. It's like it's been slowly coming. And and I know people who got made redundant not long after COVID for becoming mothers, and it's not, so that those problems never went away either. But and it is because the data, isn't it, something like you're more likely to have more children as well if you're both flexible working and from home elements and all of that. So it's really. I swear I saw that somewhere. So it's really interesting. It's like the thing they want us to do is have more children. The thing that does enables that, alongside all the things that would be lovely, like free childcare and things, is actually, which companies could do, is the flexible working. And that's the thing that keeps getting taken away. And it just blows my mind still. Do you think, I do think there's something as well when I became a mum, I was definitely like, this is all going to be equal. And I was very much like you. I went back to work quite quickly, did the nursery thing, and, you know, it all came tumbling down because I wasn't in a very good culture. But I do think so many couples go in with the intention, like so many dads are so like wanting for it to be equal as well. They're not there like, I mean, I'm sure there's many are. I think we're seeing more, which is great, more of this. But why do you think there's such a gap between starting off with that intention and then how the reality comes when you become a parent?
Yeah, I think it's such a great question. And what I think is really interesting to notice is that many couples assume that we'll be equal when we become parents, but that assumption doesn't correlate with conversation.
Ooh, okay, so you don't actually talk about how you're going to do it.
No, no, because of, you know, we each look after the home together. We make decisions fairly, like we work really well together. And that is true because it's never been tested. Like, you've never actually had to talk about it. Like you've slipped into a routine based on, you know, just what works for you and habits, and you're, you know, you're able to kind of be very like side to side. So I kind of sometimes talk about how before we're parents, it's like you're riding two bicycles next to each other. You're relatively independent from one another.
Yeah.
You can make choices and decisions very flexibly. You are working side by side, but you don't really need the other person that much. Like you're not intertwined. And
Yeah.
then
I
suddenly
get
when
that
you
unless you're
become,
sick or caring for
yeah,
something. Yeah, that
yeah, yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
happen. Most
yeah.
healthy adults, you're just like, yeah, cool.
So there's you just are in this phase of going, well, everything works, so what,
Mm.
nothing's like, we'll just carry on.
Yeah.
And we don't
And
have the
that's the mindset you
conversations.
go into in
Yeah,
parenthood in general, isn't it? Like, we'll carry on and just have a baby.
yeah, well, yeah, it'll just like slot into our lives. And then what happens when you become parents is that you're then riding on a tandem. So then you are entirely intertwined and interdependent with one another in a way that if one of you shifts direction or changes or doesn't do something, it impacts the whole bike and you'll both swerve or you'll both stop or fall off. And I think we don't understand what that means in our relationship, for how we have to work differently as a couple and the impact that has. And then we're just not having the conversations, the very practical conversations that go, okay, what's it going to mean to our family, to how we are making choices about finances, about careers, about who's going to be impacted most by having a child, and what that means for our relationship. What do we actually both want? And there's, if there's like the big, you've got the big conversations that we're not having around our dreams and aspirations and careers and values. And then you've got like the smaller practical conversations around the mental load that are the things that we are spoken about even less. And that's where the women, not the women, but women tend to take all of that on, primarily because it's so deeply embedded in all of our social norms, in what we saw growing up, in our policies, because women get a year's maternity leave. Well, so who's going to pick up the mental load? Well, it's women, because we're the ones at home on maternity leave that are the default carers. Like women are expected to be the carer, the protector, the housemaker, everything, because that is the role that we have been defined to live by in society, and everything that we read, in all the messages that we were given growing up, in all of our workplace policies and our government policies. Like, it is still pushing women into that role, and it is not empowering and supporting and equipping and enabling dads to do that role. And so we don't talk about it. It just happens. And then because women are then taking on all of the mental load, because we are the ones at home and that is the message that we've been given, that then influences the bigger conversations about careers, finances, identity, and what makes sense now that we have a family. And it's that conversation about the default conversations that I see so many couples having around what seems to make financial sense now that we're parents. And that tends to mean women have to leave the corporate to either set up their own business or work 3 days a week because it doesn't make financial sense anymore. And that's where we get into this tricky bind because we're creating that inequity in our relationships and the workplace. And it all stems from the fact that our policies and norms don't empower and equip anything else. And we're not aware of the long-term impact of some of these conversations and decisions, and we don't know to have the conversations in the first place. And it's this web, this tricky sticky web that it kind of all comes together. And that's not to say that, for me, it's not to say that the traditional model of a mother that wants to not work and a father that wants to be the breadwinner is the wrong thing, but are we making conscious decisions about it? And I think for so many families we have to have two incomes, and for so many women that we want to work. So we are falling into we are in traditional models, trying to work, holding everything, and not able, and then burning out because we're not having the conversations and society isn't enabling us, and we just don't know how to make the jigsaw pieces fit together. And I think that's in essence the stickiness.
You explain it like that, it's so much. And I just always have the finance brain on me because, like I said, most of us do need two incomes. The way the world's set up, most of us might have got a mortgage or a rental based on our two incomes and then have a baby.
Yeah.
But also, if it was in a world where if something happened and you weren't financially screwed over for being the carer in the house, that would be great. But that's not the world we live in. So, and I've grown up seeing that. And so for me, I'm always like, financial independence, not having financial independence will come at a cost to so many women if we advocate for that side rather than, considering all the web you've put there, it's so much more than that. That's another piece. And so when do you think, because this is what I've always thought, you can't go to an individual because so many women become mothers. I mean, we've all been there. No one told me about this with so many things, whether it's the relationship or the breastfeeding being hard or, there's so many things because you can't on a one-on-one level explain it to people. When and think in society is a good time to have these conversations, that these are conversations to be having way before parenthood?
Well, yeah, I mean, my audacious goal when I set up Parents to Work, and perhaps audacious and perhaps a little naive, was, well, we just need to transform the antenatal system. And I still think we need to, and I still would love to try and do that if anyone is willing to help me try and do that. I'm trying. So that's why I wrote Beyond Baby Talk, which is structured as the 12 date night conversations to have before the baby's born.
And it's a fantastic book. We'll put a link in the comments.
Thank you. And it is so it's a workbook. So it's not a heavy 300-page book. It's a light workbook that can just start to open the conversations because they don't exist in antenatal at the moment. And in antenatal, we are so focused on, in the politest way, how a baby will come out of us, which will naturally appear. It's biology. We will give birth, and there's different ways that we can learn the process to make us comfortable and understand the risks and the options that are open to us. And that is all hugely valuable and really important conversations. But we just completely ignore what happens when you leave hospital. Now, I understand.
Apart from bathing the baby, that still seems to be a thing in these classes. I remember bathing the baby and changing a nappy, which I'm like, you will figure out.
Yeah. And I'm like, so part of me goes, yes, I understand in the antenatal period, there is only so much that you can talk about when it comes to relationships because for many women, myself included, I had buried my head in the sand in a way. I was like, I just do not want to know about how this baby is going to come out, because it's too overwhelming.
And you never know what that history they've seen in their own family and what you're served on TV is often not great,
Yeah. I definitely never watched, what was that Channel 4 program?
One Born Every Minute. I lived with a midwife for a while. I didn't have a choice.
No, I could never watch that. I just don't want to see it. It'll come out. It'll be fine.
I badly remember the positive births from it. I don't know why. That's more about me. I live on the air of positivity.
Yeah. But I think there's the opportunity that we have in antenatal is not to say you're doomed, your relationship is going to be really hard. But I think we can just start to open up to say, do you know what? Like, these are the few conversations that are worth having now before you are tired and overwhelmed and then start making decisions by default. Because the problem is that we are sleepwalking into decisions that are impacting us for the next 10, 15 years, and we don't know that they're impacting us for that long time. And so if we can just start to normalize to say, start talking about these now, start talking about it's not just the big things around like careers and finances, and putting into the lens of, a lot of people make these decisions by default without really thinking about it. But have you considered the fact that the childcare cost doesn't just come out of one person's salary? That's a family income. Like, how can we start to challenge some of those norms that we're experiencing at the point of antenatal, to say, when you are considering childcare, you need to consider it as a family income. Don't assume it's all coming out of one person's salary. And I think we can start to challenge that at antenatal, to sow the seeds of the things that we need to be considering as a partnership in the way that we are working together. And that's where it needs to start. And we need to normalize that we are working against the tide. To try and
it's hard. It's going to be hard for all of us trying to change it, basically, but it's a good thing.
And it's just about conscious decisions. Like, are you consciously aware of the decisions that you're making and the impact that those are having? And it's not just the decisions, but also this is becoming a parent is the most vulnerable time of your life, particularly for women, but also the hormones changes that men go through as well. And we don't encourage conversations that say, how are you going to support one another? Are we talking about the fact that, and challenging the myth of maternal instinct? No. Are we saying, we talk about skin to skin and for dads to have skin to skin, but are we highlighting the neuroscience that actually the hormone releases in dads is exactly the same as women, and that maternal instinct is all about the hormone changes that are released through caregiving? And are we talking about that? And are we saying that dads get the same hormone release if they spend time with the baby, doing all the nappy changes, having lots of cuddles, taking the lead in caregiving? Because the barrier that comes up is, well, I'm feeding, so he doesn't get time to do it. He's looking after me. And antenatal, a lot of them say, Dad, you need to look after mum while she's feeding. And that's not creating time for the hormone releases that are really important for dads, so that they start to feel like a dad, so they start to bond with the baby, so they want to be more present and connected. Because otherwise the risk is that by pushing them away early on, we are continuing the philosophy that their role is in the office, because that's where they feel needed. That's where they feel like they can play their role as dad. And so it's these subtle conversations that we can start to influence and change in antenatal, to highlight the importance of being able to do this together, and how you need to support one another's emotional changes, like through the journey, and be there for one another. Because it's often the emotional support that is all where the conflict comes from, because you're not feeling like you are understanding each other's lived experiences. You are not feeling like that's where the distance can start to come as well. So I think it's the two. It's how do you support the emotional journey that you'll both go through, and start to challenge some of the assumptions that we're making along the way in terms of the decisions. Just a few things.
I know, I love how we open it up and I'm like, wow, there's still so much. And I bet, because there's still stuff I'm blaming. I didn't know about men and the hormones and that side of things. I know obviously there's little steps taken to encourage skin to skin with dads now. They've got more photos these days now of dads connecting with their babies, which is lovely. But yeah, I didn't know that. And if there's anyone listening here who has gone through this whole journey and been like, yeah, and they're still in that stuck stage and that friction stage, what would you say to them would really help if they're, in motherhood and they're like, this is just not working right now and I'm struggling?
So if somebody is struggling in their relationship.
Yeah.
I think the thing that is hardest is that when we're struggling and when we're starting to feel angry and resentment is building up, it's really hard to have a conversation that doesn't start to feel like an attack or blame and creating defensiveness in the other person. And so part of it is being able to talk about what you need. So I think the two biggest challenges that in the way that we communicate with our partners that tend to come up are the emotional distance, because I'm not feeling seen or heard or recognized or supported in the way that I need to be, because mostly it's women that carry all of the emotional support for the family, which is one of the 8 types of mental load. And who's carrying yours? And who's holding that? Because men stereotypically tend to be fixers and problem solvers. And so if you're coming with the emotional needing to hold emotional space, quite quickly what you often receive is, well, here's how I'm going to fix it for you, when actually we just want to be heard. So there's something about how do you contract with your partner to be able to say, like, I need a hug, like I'm having a hard time, like I'm feeling disconnected and I'm feeling like really emotionally drained, and this is just what I need from you. And whether it's I need you to listen and not fix it, or I need a hug, like what is the way that you can rebuild some of that emotional connection? And that links to the ability to be able to say what it is you actually need. That is being framed from a place of I'm finding this hard, or like I'm not able to be managing the juggle with everything, or this week is just really chaotic for me. I need us to find a better way through this. How can you help me do that? Not you're an arse, you're not doing anything. Pick up your flipping pants and put them in the wash.
What? Not again.
Yeah. Like, what actually is what is your need? And I think there's also, I do think one of the really hard reflections that all mothers also need to make is, what's my role in this? What am I? So I don't know if you're familiar with the term maternal gatekeeping.
No, let's talk about that.
So maternal gatekeeping is when you tend to hold on to something too tightly in a way that is then pushing your partner away. And quite often, so you might hear this through my husband can't, like, he's hopeless at filling the nappy bag, like I just have to do it, like he just can't do it, he won't put on the coat, put in enough change of clothes or nappies, he doesn't think about it, so I just have to do it. Well, that's because we're not allowing our partners to fail, because actually you probably have only learnt to do that because of the amount of times you've got caught out without enough nappies, and so you now know, and you've learnt that process the hard way, but he hasn't. And so there's the kind of the eye rolling and the tutting and the judging and the negativity of, well, it's not even I'm going to help you learn this. What we tend to do is, I know you won't do it, so I'm going to do it. And as somebody who is then on the recipient of that, well, it's not very empowering to then want to lean in and want to step in to be able to do something, to do it and to learn, because then it's, well, she just knows better, so I don't need to, or she wants to do it, so I don't need to do it. And there's so many, and again, it all comes down to the fact that women are the ones that have learned all of it, because we are the ones on maternity leave.
Time off.
I had the time off. And so there is that inevitable gatekeeping that comes up. And it, again, is that conscious effort of, I need to let you learn and fail, and not judge you for it and not criticize you for it, because I also had to go through that process myself. And recognizing that if your partner does something in a completely different way than you would, either in the way that you are rocking your baby to sleep and putting them down or whatever it is, maybe that's okay. Like, does it matter if it's done slightly differently or in a slightly different
setting
routine?
the stage. They are going to parent differently. You know, that's setting the time for the future when kids come home from school. They get a different, if dad's the key parent there, I know it is in my house, they get a different evening to if it's me.
And so much of this sense of, I can't go out in the evening because I have to be there for bedtime, or like, how much pressure are we putting on ourselves and gatekeeping in a way, and preventing space for our partners to really own and lean in and take ownership. And I say this not just with babies, but older children as well, on equalish podcast a few weeks ago, we had a parenting expert who, you know, she had to remind us that actually even in the way that you parent, it's okay for two people to do it differently.
Yeah.
And in the way that you are, you know, resolving conflict or disciplining, like, it's okay if it's done differently.
Well, I see it as a really good thing, because it's like my husband gets annoyed about stuff I don't, and then vice versa. So some things do need to be annoyed about, and other things do need to be chilled out on.
Yeah. But sometimes
I
we can
think that's
feel
a
like
compliment.
it has to be done our way.
Yeah, no, I do see sometimes where I'm like, no, he's like homework. He's so much better at that than me, and he's like way more chill. And I'm like, you should be doing that. And it wasn't until we got to that phase I'm like, this is your this is not for me. I am not the homework
your domain.
I will go organise some clubs for them. That is my domain. And it is, and you don't know till you get to those phases. And I had such an a good question then that I now need to rack my brains about, because it's back to that maternal gatekeeping. Oh yeah, it's about like social media, because so much is targeted at mothers. And I think it was really the sleep thing you were also saying, like so much is really targeted at us, like mother, you know, whether a mother should be there, whether you should sleep train. And I think it's like, do you think it doesn't help maternal gatekeeping? It's like, well, I feel like I know more because I'm being told more on social media, and I read this, so I have to do this, whereas dads aren't really looking at this content.
Well, yeah, the algorithm doesn't give it to them in the first place, so they never see it. And it's society is reinforcing that a mother's duty is in the home, and if you're not being the present mother, that you're a bad person. And this often comes up predominantly with who gets the phone call when the child's sick. Even if you told them to call dad, the default is to call mum. I've heard stories of dads take their babies to the checkups at the doctors, and the doctor is then judging why the mother isn't there doing it, and judging the father for being the person who is taking the child. I mean, if we keep reinforcing these norms in society, then how can we not be the ones gatekeeping or keeping fathers away, because we're being told that this is our duty and our place to do it, and we're being pushed out of the workforce to do it and not recognized for it. So it is really hard.
We've still got so long to go, because I see it on this podcast still, so many women justifying, oh, well, if I do this, then I'll be back at this time. Like, my kids are my focus, but I need this as well. Like having to justify the business as being something that makes them a better parent, which you know.
And then dads are also being told, you know, why can't your wife do it if they're the ones that have to go and do pickup? It's just this assumption.
How far away do you think we are from this utopia of equity?
How far away are we? As society at large, we're a long way from it, because there's a huge campaign at the moment government are reviewing parental leave policies at the moment. They are actively looking at how maternity and paternity leave policies can be improved. So if you haven't already emailed your MP to say that you support 6 weeks paternity leave, please do so, because we are at that opportunity now where the law could be changing in the next couple of years. And if at the point whether you are self-employed or employed, if dads get 6 weeks paid paternity leave as statutory, that is a huge stepping stone in the right direction. And I think that could be quite a pivotal shift that will force organisations to start to do things differently, and is setting the tone in the right direction. But we need that change in government. So we need everybody to be supporting the campaigns that are driving for that, like Parenting Out Loud, Pregnant and Screwed, and the Dad Shift. Like, support the campaigns, email your MP, be part of that, be loud and proud about that, about the need for that change. And then individually, it is possible, with the conscious conversations with each other in your partnership, and also the role modeling that you're able to do in your workplace as well, and being part of active support networks for mums and dads, because dads often haven't been part of the support networks and the community of dads in the same way that women have, because they haven't existed. They just haven't been there. But there are so many incredible dads networks now that exist.
Shout out to a local one to me, Dad Vengers. My husband doesn't even go that much, but he's on the WhatsApp because they're actually fairly local to us. And I think it's made such a difference to him, weirdly, like just that it's there. And he's like, and he finds out stuff that he's like, he wouldn't have known if he wasn't on a dad chat.
Yeah. The Dad Shift campaign group. There's, WhatsApp chats that people can be part of on that. And that is so much more than the campaign. It's actually like dads supporting each other with the questions that they're having, particularly about their experience. And I think is so critical because so much of that community has only really existed within women. But even that, I think women are great at supporting one another in community, but we also are not great at asking for help and leaning on our community because we are still operating quite independently. And I think another big strain that we put on our relationships, whether it's about equality or not, just I think the way that we are living in society now is that we are parenting independently. We're not parenting in community because a lot of us don't live near our families. So that creates that sense of independence for generations, like hundreds and thousands of years. We have always parented in community. We have lived in community, and we aren't supposed to be parenting on our own. And this is why it's also so much harder. But I think a big realization kind of for me was when I was looking at and talking about, I always talked about thinking about your support village in a career perspective and who is supporting you, and then thinking about your community as a partnership and your family and who are the people that are supporting and there to really enable and be there for you. And then kind of a big light bulb moment for me was when reading some research about actually we put so much pressure on our partner to be our everything because we are parenting independently, because we are in this like autonomous society. We are putting so much pressure on our partner to be our one and all and our answer to everything and our greatest support network. And that has to shift as well. It's so much like no one person can be our everything. So in even thinking about in our support network, I think we focus so much on the support network that is enabling our childcare systems. Whereas also we need to be looking at our support system in terms of our own self and well-being. Like, who are the people around me that I can go out and be joyful with, that I can like just have some fun and relax and refill my cup, or the ones that I can do exercise with, or whatever it is. Like, what is it that I need for myself that I'm not relying on my partner for? And that might be a lot of that emotional support as well, because they can't give us everything, but we expect them to. And that's why we get pissed off.
I know, I learned that many years ago when I realised actually my husband was not my theatre buddy and I needed to get my own. And it worked out really well. We've both been very happy since.
Exactly.
In an ideal world, would he love it also, but I don't like football, so there we go.
Yeah.
I'm not
We've
his
got to have our
buddy.
own little, communities for the things that are
I love that. And I love you mentioned joy, because we always close with joy on the podcast. And so I feel like you must have this nailed, Rachel. No pressure. But we've had everything. Like, I think the founder of Etta Loves, hers was skipping in the garden. Others was like, we've had so many amazing things. Like, I think mine was discovering the theatre I need to keep going to that regularly to fill my cup up and, give myself some energy. So what's your joy, Rachel?
So my joy, I have a wonderful group of friends, local friends, discovered outdoor dipping with them. So we do kind of outdoor dipping. We try and do it every week, and we carve out 2 weekends a year where we go somewhere away for the weekend and we'll go dipping in the sea somewhere, and having that permission to be able to really to prioritize that time and go away for a weekend, that fills me with joy. But then this escalated massively for me this year in a way I was not expecting and didn't really realize I could do it. But now I've done it, I am going to do it every year. So 3 of us actually went skiing for a week. I took a whole week off, Monday to Friday, went away skiing, which I haven't done in 20 years. And it was incredible. And it wasn't just, and what was wonderful about it was the first time I've actually been away with friends for a week without my partner or children in 10 years. And the realization that not all of our holiday has to be spent together as a family. but actually being able to have a week off to do something like that was fun, it was active, we laughed every day, all day, and got to be outdoors doing something like that was just such a gift. And it felt amazing to be there. I mean, I still, even when we got there, was like, I actually can't believe I'm here doing this. This just feels outrageous. Who am I to take a Monday to Friday off and just like let my husband do everything for a week?
No, it was great. Do it. I did it Wednesday to Sunday this year. Same thing skiing. The funny thing was I booked it because he was like, me and my friends want to go skiing. Any of your friends going, knowing that I'd be like racking it up in my brain, when's my ski trip? And we made it happen, both of us, separately. Exactly. And I was like, this is great. We both had a great time.
And it's that whole thing of like, we need to have time apart. Like we need to do things on our own. And remember that we still exist outside of the family. And so that was my pure selfish joy that I will
do it again next year.
God damn it, I'm going to keep doing it.
A yearly trip for Rachel. We're going to make sure that happens for you. Yep. I have honestly loved this podcast. I've learned so much. And, you know, this is right up my street, everything equity in the home. And so we can get it in the workplace as well. So thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us. Where can people find out more about you or contact you if they're looking to find out more about your services?
Lovely. So I'm on Instagram, parents_that_work, and LinkedIn, Rachel Childs. You can email me, rachel@parentsthatwork.co.uk, and obviously my website is there too. So yeah, and the book Beyond Baby Talk is the best way to get that is directly through my website.
Excellent. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Rachel. And yeah, we look forward to hopefully doing another follow-up, maybe when the 6 weeks of maternity leave comes in and we talk about what difference it's going to make.
Thanks so much for having me. It was such a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to that special episode brought to you in collaboration with Lucy Legal. Over 6 episodes, we'll be discussing big topics in motherhood and business, relationships, finances, maternity leave, and AI. If you're a business owner and want to make sure that your legal terms are correct, and most importantly, that you are covered, go to Lucy Legal for real legal guidance, templates, and support. Link in the show notes of this episode. Thank you.